Part 36. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 352. So, who will handle Ye Ying's matter? After Gao Qiang finished speaking, the control room fell silent. It felt like everyone's eyes were on him. Gao Qiang pointed at himself in disbelief. Me? Yes, Sasha nodded, speaking with her mouth bulging with snacks. After all, the Lord is also a source holder, and as the leader of an alien race, it's the most appropriate thing for me to persuade her. She swallowed the snacks in her mouth with a gulp. Sasha licked her fingers and looked at Gao Qiang. Or does the Lord want me to talk? Sasha can't guarantee success. Thinking that Sasha only knows humiliating diplomacy, Gao Qiang was full of black lines. This kind of thing really can't be left to Sasha. Which one? Wenzi, who was ignored by everyone, raised his hand weakly. Actually, I also. Okay, I'll go if I go. Without giving Wenzi a chance to speak, Gao Qiang still agreed to this matter. After all, from the surveillance footage, Ye Ying looked like a punching bag. How difficult could it be to deal with her? After Gao Qiang agreed, he was sent to the door of the room where Ye Ying was imprisoned by 401. After asking 401 for some food and drinks, Gao Qiang walked into the room with things in his arms. Who? Hearing the sound of the door opening, Ye Ying looked at Gao Qiang timidly. She actually didn't understand. As the Lord of the Elves, after being caught by humans, he was locked up for a year without saying a word. Ye Ying had never heard of such a thing. If the other party had a compassionate heart like herself, he could have let her go. Or, like they did to others, kill her. Thinking of the elf lords who died because of her, Ye Ying's eyes dimmed a little. Gao Qiang walked closer to Ye Ying, and he didn't see any negative emotions towards him in Ye Ying's eyes. In addition to sadness, there was no resentment or anger in Ye Ying's eyes. It seemed to be saying, if you provoke me, you're just kicking cotton. But the more this happened, the more people felt an inexplicable sense of guilt, and they didn't know how to speak. Who, eat something. Gao Qiang pushed snacks and drinks in front of Ye Ying. This trick is very useful for coaxing Sasha, but I don't know if it will work on the female leader of the elves. Ye Ying raised her head and glanced at Gao Qiang. Then, perhaps because she was really hungry, she took a drink from Gao Qiang and sipped it. From her appearance, it seems that she has an inexplicable trust in outsiders, and believes that everyone is a compassionate person. Therefore, she is not worried that Gao Qiang will add some strange medicine to the water. Seeing Ye Ying just drinking the drink. Don't you want to eat some snacks? Gao Qiang asked with some curiosity. No, Ye Ying shook her head. I haven't eaten anything for a long time. It's very harmful to eat hard food suddenly. At this time, Gao Qiang noticed that although he said to feed Ye Ying more food last time, others seemed to have forgotten about it very quickly. So Ye Ying was still hungry and full for most of the time she was imprisoned. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang glanced at Ye Ying's tender skin. She didn't get thin even though she was starved. Could it be that elves can photosynthesize? Noticing Gao Qiang's gaze, Ye Ying also put down the half-drunk drink in her hand. So why did you come to me after you seized the source? Kill me. Seeming to have seen her own end, Ye Ying acted very calmly. And her mercy did not allow her to resent anyone. No, Gao Qiang shook his head. Since Ye Ying had already come straight to the point, Gao Qiang also directly stated his purpose. I want you to do me a favor and invite Ye Yat and Ye Xian to talk about whether we can solve the current problem peacefully. Hearing the word peace, Ye Ying's eyes lit up instantly, and she raised her head and looked at Gao Qiang. You also think we can have peace, right? At this moment, Ye Ying had already put aside her sorrow for the dead elf lords. How fascinated she was by the word peace. After all, wasn't peace what she had been pursuing? Just two words made Ye Ying let down her guard. Perhaps it was because of the source of mercy. She was willing to believe that Gao Qiang was not lying to her. She hated war by nature, and she didn't think that the races should fall into an endless melee in the war game. Obviously, many times there was no conflict, but they were forced to kill innocent lords of other races just to survive. What is the need for this kind of game? For this reason, Ye Ying actually wanted to go to the infinite battlefield, because only there were the lords with the most say from each race. She just needed to successfully call on the lords of each race to stop the war in the infinite battlefield. With the upper class following the lower class, the war game may really usher in lasting peace. Gao Qiang's word peace touched Ye Ying's heart, so it was easier to persuade Ye Ying than Gao Qiang imagined. Ye Ying is not like Ye Ya, who does not have the power to see through others' hearts, nor is she like Ye Xian, who is wary of humans. She volunteered to be a bridge of communication between the two sides, and was willing to invite Ye Xian to discuss a peace treaty. Just because she did not want to see the lords of all parties continue to bleed and sacrifice for this. The victory conditions of the war game have never been just a simple war. Perhaps they can find other conditions for victory in this war game. Thinking of this, Ye Ying sent 2 messages to Ye Ya and Ye Xian through the friend list. Brother, sister. Inside the golden tree, under the gaze of many elf lords, Ye Xian frowned and paced back and forth. Something is wrong, very wrong. On the other side, Ye Ya sipped green tea and looked at Ye Xian with a sneer. Are you scared? Ying'er is your sister. Now I just want you to go out and talk about a peaceful ending. Don't you want to? Some elf lords thought that Ye Ya was right and looked at Ye Xian with a bad face. Because of the news from Ye Ying, they wanted Ye Ya and Ye Xian to leave the golden tree area and talk to the outside world. At this moment, the elf lords in the golden tree were divided into 2 factions again. The only difference from before was, this time, Ye Xian was firmly opposed to going out. He could guess with his feet that this was most likely a hangmen banquet against him and Ye Ya. But Ye Ya did not agree with his idea. This time, Ye Ya, who had always disagreed with rescuing Ye Ying, changed her attitude. Ying'er's words did not carry any malice, and she was not forced by anyone. According to what Ying'er said, this is our chance, the chance to bring Ying'er back safely. But you want to give up the peace talks with the other party because of your unwarranted suspicion. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Me Shida Di. Chapter 353. While speaking, Ye Ya stood up. I repeat for the last time, I can understand her. Everything Ying'er said comes from her true heart. Ying'er has never thought of harming you or me, but because you can't understand, you can't even trust your own sister. If you don't want to go, then I will go by myself. After Ye Ya finished speaking, the group of elf lords who had been following Ye Ya suddenly looked at Ye Xian with disdainful eyes. They believed Ye Ya. Since there was nothing wrong with Ye Ya's understanding, it must be Ye Xian's own passion. This is the one who still considers himself a brother, bah. The whispered curses of many elf lords only made Ye Xian's face look ugly. He has experienced many battlefields and still has some determination. Facing Ye Ya, Ye Xian asked a question, haven't you ever thought about it? Why can't the other party come to the golden tree area to negotiate, or directly negotiate with us remotely through Ying'er? Why do we have to go out? Hearing Ye Xian's questions, Ye Ya sighed heavily. You still don't understand. Think about it from another person's perspective. If you were from a human perspective right now, would you dare to enter the area of the golden tree? Hearing this, Ye Xian fell silent. Of course he didn't dare. Ye Ya sneered, so, you don't understand at all. You will never understand the suffering other races suffer when you wage war against others. You will never hear the sad accusations made by the dead souls in the air when you killed countless children. Ye Xian became even more silent. He knew what Ye Ya was talking about. It was a victory, a victory brought by another Sephirah holder under the command of Mother Kabbalah. And as the loser, there happens to be the Lord of the Saints. At the time of settling the weight of the land, many lands belonging to the human saints were divided into the hands of the elves. Just different from other times. On the land that was divided that time, there were still many humans living who had not been evacuated in time. In order to protect the safety of the mother tree, Yeshyen and several other source material holders began to clean up and massacre those humans. The blood of that day dyed the already fertile land red. Yeshyen still remembers that when he commanded the tree spirit to kill a human child, an old man stood in front of the child regardless of his own safety. However, this only made Yeshyen stunned for half a second. Soon, he stood in front of Yaya with an unkind expression, blocking Yaya's way. Yaya was right, his hands were indeed full of blood. But what he possesses is Sephiroth X, which represents the kingdom and the most solid wall in front of all the ordinary elves who are unwilling to participate in the battle. He will not admit that he is wrong, nor does he feel that he is wrong. On the contrary, he also knew that Yaya and Yaying had secretly preserved some humans, trying to allow those humans who belonged to the saints to coexist with the elves in the plane of elves. He knew a lot more, but out of protection for Yaya and Yaying, he didn't want other elves to know. Yes, although it is a kingdom, the kingdom is also divided into an inner city and an outer city. It was obvious that Yaya and Yaying were the only residents of the inner city in his heart. You are not allowed to go, Yeshyen scolded Yaya, trying to stop the other party's dangerous behavior. Even under the hint of Yeshyen's eyes, many elven lords from Yeshyen's side secretly gathered the people there, with the intention of forcing Yaya to stay. It is naturally impossible for Yaya not to understand what Yeshyen means. It was precisely because she could understand that she was furious at this moment. Yeshyen, are you sick? Pointing at Yeshyen's nose, Yaya cursed regardless of her posture, Yinger is your sister. While speaking, Yaya turned around and greeted the lords who were still watching. If you want to believe me, just follow me. If Yeshyen doesn't want to save his sister, I will. Let him kill me if he can. As soon as these words came out, many elven lords were moved by Yaya's words and silently followed Yaya's footsteps. Yaya forced forward, but the elf lord she faced did not dare to stop him and could only put away his weapon. Otherwise, what else can be done? As members of the same clan, could they really kill Yaya? So what's the difference between them and the beasts who took the path of traitors? She's really gone, what should we do? Seeing Yaya really leading people away from the golden tree, an elf lord approached Yeshyen and asked. Yeshyen was silent for a long time, then stamped his foot hard. Bring all the citizens with you. They are my sisters after all. Outside the golden tree, Yaya slightly raised the corners of her lips as she felt the footsteps of Yeshyen chasing after him quickly. Yeshyen couldn't understand her, but she could understand Yeshyen. Although Yeshyen was a bloodthirsty and conceited bastard in her eyes, if she believed that she and Yaying were in danger, she would not really let it go. But she will prove it to Yeshyen. She wasn't wrong. In her understanding, the meaning expressed by Yaying, and even the environment Yaying was in, were all kind. This time, the other party may really want to explore a peaceful solution to this war game. With this in mind, Yaya and Yeshyen left the golden tree area one after another. The light prism tower did not launch an attack, and the mobilized soldiers only watched the many elf lords in action. Seeing this, Yaya became more certain of her understanding. According to the agreement with Yaying, the two soon came to an open space. Where is Yaying? Looking at the empty land, Yeshyen asked Yaya unhappily. He knew that the human would not be so kind, and would still want to leave a way out for the foreign race when the victory had already been established. Why? Is it because they have no relationship with the human? But Yaya said without any hurry, wait a little longer. The next moment, a traction beam appeared in front of the two. Our rail transport ladder is in the process of transportation. Yaya's mouth curled up, here it comes. But after the light faded, Yaya's expression froze on her face. Ying why are you the only one? Yexian followed Yaya's gaze, and sure enough, the person who was led by the beam was only Yaying with a smile on her face. Yaying waved to the two. Brother Xian, sister Yat. Don't worry, I'm fine. As he said this, he was about to run towards the two of them. But at this moment, a crackling sound of electricity rang out, and the attack of the light prism tower passed through Yaying's body like thunder. Almost in an instant, half of Yaying's body disappeared. Ying Until the remaining half of her body collapsed on the ground, Yaya lost consciousness and shed 2 lines of clear tears. And Yexian saw his future fate through the countless light prism towers that were gathering energy around him. At this moment, all he had left for Yaya and Yaying was disappointment. ZZ. The images of the 3 people disappeared on the big screen. Gao Qiang was a little unhappy. Seeing the scene of Yaying's death, his guilt became even stronger. Is this considered to be affected by the source? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi. Chapter 354. In fact, when he released Yaying alone, Gao Qiang thought that the Time Lord hiding in the dark would come to rescue her. After all, the offensiveness of the demon's final strategy and the defensive power of the elves' golden trees are currently very few things that can compete with them. When the demons were defeated, the Time Lords did not take action. Logically speaking, whether they are looking for chess pieces or puppets, when the elves are defeated now, the Time Lords should take action. But still nothing. It seems that I still think too much. Also, from Gao Qiang's point of view, he actually doesn't have much grudge against the Time Lord. A Time Lord can't be the kind of fool who gets one look, stares back and yells, "What are you worried about?" and then yells that you already have a way to die. In this battle, the Time Lord may have really given up on dealing with him. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang gently closed his eyes. Yaying's compassion and kindness are very pure, and Gao Qiang actually wants to keep her if possible. But this is impossible. As holders of the true essence, the 3 brothers and sisters will eventually return to the embrace of the Kabbalah tree of life. Even if Gao Qiang lets the 3 of them go this time, the saints will not let go of their long-standing grievances with the Kabbalah tree of life. In order for the tree of life to wither, the holder of the Sephirot must be killed. Therefore, after this war game is over, Aisyer and other saints will still choose to continue to pursue Yaying and the others. There will eventually be a battle between the 2 sides. When Gao Qiang is gone, the power of the 3 people can be fully unleashed. It is unknown how many saints lords will die because of the 3 people. Among the people who died, there might be a few followers who had followed Aisyer in Heiken to support Gao Qiang. Or maybe it's one of Aisyer and Wen's. This is what Gao Qiang doesn't want to see. Suppress the guilt in your heart. Gao Qiang turned his head and saw the excited expression of Aisyer coming towards him. Ahir gave a big hug. Thanks. The kiss is so great. But under the gaze of everyone, Aisyer quickly and embarrassedly let go of Gao Qiang. Sorry, I was a little too excited just now. Wiping a few tears from the corners of his eyes due to excitement, Aisyer put on a sweet smile. When she chose to stay, she had already prepared to sacrifice. I also thought that this interception might end in vain. But Gao Qiang really gave her a big surprise. The lives of the 3 elven origin holders were left here forever. When the 3 Sephirot appear again in the future, it is likely to be in a particularly low-level battlefield, and there may even be the presence of reverse Sephirot. To this end, the saints will sacrifice countless high-ranking lords. Thinking of this, Ixier looked at Gao Qiang with a gentler expression. Somewhat unaccustomed to Ixier's enthusiasm, Gao Qiang took a few steps back and suggested changing the subject. Then before the victory, how about we hold a celebration banquet? It was like the first time we met. I have no objection. Yena closed the script in his hand at some point and voted in favor. He had no sympathy for the deaths of Yexian's 3 brothers and sisters. He even felt 100 times less guilty than Gao Qiang. Ever since he was hunted by his compatriots, he no longer regarded the elves born in Kabbalah as his relatives. We have no objection either. Ixier and Wenz nodded immediately. In that case. Gao Qiang suddenly paused mid-sentence. Because he noticed that the way Ixier looked at him seemed to be a little strange. The gentle smile gradually stiffened, replaced by dilated pupils and slightly furrowed eyebrows. It was as if she saw something that surprised her. Gao Qiang, in your base, does the time on the electronic watch go backwards? Hearing the strange question raised by Ixier, Gao Qiang's heart rang with alarm bells. He turned around sharply and looked at the big screen. I saw that at the very edge of the big screen, time was actually reversed minute by minute. 401, what's going on? Sensing something was wrong, Gao Qiang quickly called 401. But 401, which is always waiting for you, has no response at all at this moment. Without the control of 401, the entire base seemed to have come to a standstill and entered a strange atmosphere. Gao Qiang noticed Gao Qiang's serious expression. Everyone in the control room stood up one by one and began to scan around with their eyes. Among them, Lian Qian and Bai Hexia reacted the fastest. The 2 of them walked to the same location calmly. If you look at the console in front of the 2 of them, you will find that the location they are in is the self-destruct button that Shasha pressed earlier. The joke wasn't funny. Seeing that the time on the electronic watch on the big screen was still running backwards, Lian Qian's voice became a little cold. Even she didn't notice when 401 disappeared. Because Gao Qiang delegated too much authority. If 401 really has a rebellious mentality, it will definitely become the biggest disaster. Aren't you going to say anything yet? Lian Qian's voice became colder. She didn't believe anything would happen to 401. As a disconnected intelligence brain left over from ancient times, the designers of 401 have considered almost all situations that can affect the operation of 401. Just when Lian Qian was heartbroken and ready to press the self-destruct button, a blood-red font took up the entire big screen. Escape quickly. What's the meaning? Before anyone could react, Gao Qiang saw that Ixier was suddenly taller than him. Gao Qiang was stunned for a moment. The whole world began to shake violently. The walls were torn apart, and the floor beneath them collapsed downwards. Feeling that everyone's figures were getting higher and higher, Gao Qiang suddenly stepped on the ground and fell downwards. Gao Qiang. Ixier, who was closest to Gao Qiang, had quick eyesight and quick hands. He reached out and grabbed Gao Qiang, preventing Gao Qiang from falling completely. After coming back to his senses, Gao Qiang noticed what had happened underneath him. A piece of molten lava is surging upward. On the big screen in the control room, although there was no sound of 401, a new picture appeared again. I saw the satellite map being opened. From the perspective of the satellite map, the entire planet's crust is cracking, and countless molten lava from the center of the Earth is tumbling upwards. It doesn't take long for this planet to transform from a wasteland into a lava planet. By then, no life can survive here. At this moment, Ixier took Gao Qiang's hand and dropped it suddenly, making everyone who had originally breathed a sigh of relief raise their hearts to their throats again. Lord, Juluo and Shasha wanted to come forward to save them, but were blocked by a sudden spurt of lava. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi-shi-da-di. Chapter 355. And what is visible to the naked eye is The floor where Il is sitting is also falling, and he will soon fall completely into the pit and be swallowed by the molten water at the bottom. Seeing this scene, a figure flew out over everyone. At the critical moment, you still have to look at me. Satan waved his wings and passed through the molten lava spewing from the ground, and in an instant he was in front of Aisier and Gao Qiang. But just when his hands were about to grab the two of them, suddenly a huge boulder flew out and hit Satan's body, knocking him aside. Seeing such a natural scene, Gao Qiang suddenly recalled what Ling Yanning had said before his death in the Dao dynasty. Do you believe in destiny? Boom. The ground collapsed again. This time, half of Ixier's body was thrown off the ground, but he still held onto Gao Qiang's hand. Damn it! Lian Qian, who was in a safe area for the time being, slammed the console hard. 401, what on earth are you doing? Hurry up and start the long transport ladder to pick us up. It was still silent, and Lian Qian couldn't get any response. On the other side, Wenz watched Aisier in danger and walked forward regardless of his own safety. But in the molten lava that exploded from time to time on the ground, Wenz's behavior was no different from that of a moth flying into a flame. Wenz, go back quickly. When Aisier saw Wenz doing such a stupid thing, he could only shout at Wenz with all his strength, trying to stop him from acting out of anger. But it was too late. Wenzi was only halfway there when the ground suddenly cracked under his feet and he fell straight down. Wenz, Aisier roared. How long are you going to be willful? However, under everyone's gaze, Wenzi was directly swallowed up by the molten lava rising from the ground and turned into a wisp of blue smoke. Only Aisier secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the small flag that Wenz took out at the end. She knew Wenz survived. Then all that's left is. Aisier looked at Gao Qiang, who was holding his hand. Suddenly, with all his strength, Gao Qiang was thrown into the air with the help of inertia. Satan, who had thrown away the boulder, came back and clamped Gao Qiang beside his arm, but as a price, Aisier's body fell downwards. At this moment, because Gao Qiang had previously felt threatened, scarlet roots finally stretched out from under the floor tiles. The fallen Ahir was tied up by roots, stopping the downward trend. It seemed that she survived. Gao Qiang just wanted to breathe a sigh of relief. But suddenly he saw the molten magma in the ground suddenly erupting, swallowing up Aisier and his roots. This time the lava came with such ferocity that Genman had no chance to retreat. It hurts, it hurts. Feel the pain in every inch of your body. Ahil turned his head to the side with difficulty. Although she had already planned to sacrifice herself, she did not expect that her death method would be so absurd. But if she had just hesitated for a few more seconds. She was not the only one being swallowed by the lava at this moment. Gao Qiang came to his senses fiercely and took a few deep breaths. Lord, your heart rate is a little too fast, do you need a shot of sedative? The electronic sound of 401 appeared in Gao Qiang's ears. Hearing this familiar voice, Gao Qiang was startled, and then looked at his body. At this moment, Gao Qiang's clothes were extremely clean, and there was no dust stained when the earth collapsed. At the same time, the base is intact, the large screen stays on the original screen, and the time on the electronic watch does not reverse. There was no crustal collapse, no magma eruption. It was as if what Gao Qiang had just seen was an illusion. That's right. Gao Qiang turned his head and looked towards the control room. Where's Ahir? Asher, who was standing next to him just now, didn't even have a hair left at this moment, as if she had never existed. Asher. Faced with Gao Qiang's questions, 401 seemed a little confused. Have you forgotten, she is already dead? Gao Qiang felt a chill running down his back and looked at 401 in disbelief. What did you just say? 401 repeated his words honestly. According to the surveillance footage, Isel died now. Have you forgotten? With a high-strength feeling, when 401 mentioned that a hill died now, the electronic sound paused for a while. Immediately afterwards, two pictures appeared on the big screen in the control room. These two pictures are internal monitoring of the base, and they are simultaneously monitoring the pictures in the control room. It's just that one of the pictures is monitoring Gao Qiang's current picture. In another scene, the endless molten lava just swallowed Ixer. As 401 said, a here died now. Such a weird and absurd scene. In today's normal war situation, I am afraid only one guy can realize it. It's a Time Lord. Gao Qiang's face darkened. Only a Time Lord could do such a thing. The Time Lord actually chose the moment when he was about to win. Could it be that he had figured out his trump card secretly and felt that he was sure of himself? The person that the lava rising into the sky was supposed to kill was Gao Qiang. It was only because of the actions of Ixer and Satan that the fate that should have happened was changed. Otherwise, even if he was protected by the root vine, Gao Qiang would have no chance of survival. Wow! Gao Qiang was still in shock and angry about Ixer's death. The black ball jumped over everyone and jumped onto Gao Qiang's shoulder. Feeling the black ball rubbing against him with his soft body, Gao Qiang calmed down a little. Reaching out and gently stroking the black ball, Gao Qiang gradually fell into thought. From Gao Qiang's current feelings, the path of the Time Lord may not be as simple as the 5th and 6th levels. According to intelligence, the Time Lord will only appear on battlefields above the 9th level. Does it mean that every Time Lord has at least the 9th level of the Lord path? And this is just the Lord path. As a mythical race in the eyes of many humans, this race has many characteristics that humans have not figured out. I think I understand something. Zhulogo's voice called Gao Qiang back from his thoughts. Zhulogo was looking at the big screen in the control room, and the surveillance images on the big screen were still increasing. 1, 2, 5, 10. Looking at the increasing surveillance images on the big screen, Gao Qiang's brain began to be dazed. Do these increased surveillance images prove that he is repeating himself again and again? And Zhulogo's next words made people sweat. He is looking for our mistakes. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 356. If these surveillance images represent different timelines, then among the countless timelines, there will always be a few where we made mistakes in the layout. 401, help us analyze the second surveillance image that appeared first. What happened at that time? This time, 401 did not disappear. Instead, according to Zhulogo's instructions, he quickly analyzed the disaster that Gao Qiang experienced. Very strange. I seem to have done another proxy construction. According to the random algorithm, in the light illumination plan, I replaced the light prism tower with the magma pump. Due to the excessive extraction of magma from the Earth's core by the magma pump, the planet's crust has shrunk on a small scale. This is a mistake. Listening to 401's analysis, everyone gradually understood what the previous scene was. Tens of millions of magma pumps were built on the ground. The unrestrained demand for the planet eventually caused the planet to backfire. Although the shrinkage of the crust is very small, it is enough to turn into a sky-shattering appearance when magnified to the entire planet. Then, the voice of 401 continued to come. What's even more strange is that at this time, I should have been shut down and all my permissions have been revoked, and I can't take any effective countermeasures. I'm sorry for not being able to respond to your orders, because I'm just an intelligence. Was 401 shut down in that timeline? Gao Qiang frowned. Put yourself in his shoes. If you wake up and see 401 frantically spreading the magma pump to every corner of the planet, would you also shut down 401? Gao Qiang didn't know, because he might have made different choices in different timelines. It's just that I don't understand. Gao Qiang suddenly thought of another aspect. Why didn't the other party kill me directly? If it was the disaster where the entire planet's crust was shattering and collapsing, even if Gao Qiang entered the Awakening Empire stage, he would almost certainly die. In this case, why did the Time Lord give up that time point? I think it's because of the war game. Zhu Luo said after a moment of silence. I don't know if you have noticed that although our enemy seems to have the ability to resurrect, he can't resurrect anyone he wants. In that timeline, because of the massacre of the evil of civilization, the number of lords who survived in the outside world is actually not many. That is to say, if those lords continue to die, you will win before you die. Zhu Luo's words hit the point. From this point of view, it seems that the Time Lords cannot completely override the war game. Gao Qiang looked at Zhu Luo. Although he didn't know why Zhu Luo, who couldn't even use the console, suddenly understood so many truths. But following Zhu Luo's words, he also learned the reason why the timeline did not continue. In this way, it would be difficult for the other party to defeat us, isn't it? Gao Qiang asked. From the number of surveillance that has been increasing until now, it can be seen that the Time Lords can't find a timeline in which the Awakening Empire is the first to perish. According to the strength of the Awakening Empire, even if there is a more irresistible natural disaster, it is definitely the lords of the outside world who will be defeated first. So, the victory is still in Gao Qiang's hands. Zhu Luo nodded. In theory, it is true. But I am afraid, the other party is not looking for the moment of our self-destruction, but is preparing to personally integrate a timeline that is most unfavorable to us. You mean, extract the content from different timelines and then reorganize it into a new timeline? Gao Qiang vaguely felt that what Zhu Luo said might be what the Time Lord is doing now. The death of Aisie'r is just the beginning. The other party's real idea is likely to disintegrate the power that protects himself little by little. From different timelines, he killed little by little until only himself was left, and naturally he had no power to resist. Is the Time Lord so strong? Just when Gao Qiang thought of this, a burst of alarm suddenly came from the base. Alarm, our main base is under attack. Alarm, our electromagnetic railgun is offline. Alarm, our light prism tower is offline. Alarm. What's going on? The next stage of the Time Lord is coming so fast. The big screen quickly displayed what was happening outside. The Demon Emperor's incarnation, who had been killed when Gao Qiang entered the time turbulence, was now in a state of demonization, wreaking havoc above the base. Even the electromagnetic railgun installed on the top of the base was dismantled and thrown aside by the Demon Emperor's incarnation. But this shouldn't be the case. Gao Qiang really couldn't imagine that the Demon Emperor's incarnation had a single combat power comparable to that of a single monster of the evil of civilization. Under what circumstances could he force himself into such a situation? Could it be? Gao Qiang suddenly realized something. He quickly opened the territory interface and took a look. As he expected, in the territory interface, the territory type position of the wall of size was exactly written, Fallen Empire. In this timeline, he had never awakened. Boom. At this time, another loud noise was heard. The ceiling above the control room was lifted up by the Demon Emperor's incarnation with his bare hands. A ferocious smile appeared on the face of the Demon Emperor's incarnation. I found you, little bug. Oh, there is another aura that disgusts me. As he spoke, the Demon Emperor's incarnation grabbed down with his arm burning with demonic flames, but his first target was not Gao Qiang. It was Satan who was flying and watching. The enemy's characteristics played a role. Because the Demon Emperor's incarnation was a mythical unit, he could not help but have a strong hostility towards Satan. He was held hostage by this hostility, and he even lowered the priority of attacking Gao Qiang by one level. At this moment, there was only one voice in his brain. Kill Satan, kill that monster with a disgusting aura. Go to hell. The original attack was dodged, and the Demon Emperor's incarnation attacked Satan again. Did I sleep with your mother-in-law? You're just hitting me. Satan cursed angrily, but could only dodge in panic. After all, he was just Yena's incarnation. Even if he was much stronger than Yena, he was still limited. At least, he couldn't fight against the Demon King's incarnation at the moment. But even so, it didn't prevent Satan from winning spiritually. Since the Demon King's incarnation's attacks failed several times, Satan turned back and mocked without hesitation. It seems that your mother-in-law doesn't treat you very well. Didn't she even let you eat? You don't have any strength at all. No strength at all. Why don't you let your father-in-law help you push? Hearing the insult from Satan, the Demon King's incarnation, who was already extremely hostile to him because of his enemy characteristics, went into a state of rage. A series of demonic flames blocked Satan's escape route. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 357. Feeling the threat from the demonic flame, Satan flapped his wings and stopped in place. It was different from the feeling when he faced the underground magma before. The demonic flame released by the Demon King's incarnation at this moment gave Satan the illusion that he could be corrupted. He had been transformed by the black ball once before, and now he didn't want to be restricted again. But Satan stopped moving, but the Demon King's incarnation did not. The demonic flame condensed into a long blade in the hands of the Demon King's incarnation, and chopped directly at Satan's head. The dark blue flame directly passed through Satan's body, turning the ground it touched into a demonic domain. Satan! Yena couldn't help but exclaimed. He clenched his fists. I don't know why, Satan has been restricting his actions. But when he really saw Satan being split, Yena still felt a heart-wrenching pain. Is it because the other party is his incarnation? The existence of a true heart connection made it impossible for him to turn a blind eye to Satan's death. I'm not dead yet. Satan's unpleasant voice sounded from the other side, which made Yena look surprised. At some point, Satan had been waving his wings and hovering in the sky outside. The devil flame burned Satan's wings, but the damage caused to Satan was surprisingly limited. Such a high damage immunity. The Demon King incarnation turned around and looked up at the sky. He had a feeling that Satan's damage immunity was even higher than his. It's not that the devil flame couldn't hurt Satan, but the degree of erosion on Satan was almost negligible. But his damage immunity came from the level suppression of higher life forms, so where did Satan's damage immunity come from? Just when the Demon King incarnation was about to think, Satan was not going to give him this opportunity. He gave the Demon King incarnation a middle finger with a sarcastic look on his face. What's the use of being big? You're just a clumsy beast. Your wife is calling you home for dinner in hell. Why are you still here? You. Listening to Satan insulting him again and again. The chest of the Demon King incarnation rose and fell, as if he was trying his best to suppress his anger. But when he saw the army slowly approaching on the horizon, the Demon King incarnation gradually calmed down. Why don't you look behind you? The Demon King incarnation asked word by word. Inadvertently, the traces of a clock flashed in his eyes, but no one noticed it. Following the words of the Demon King incarnation, Satan slowly turned in mid-air. However, after seeing the things on the distant horizon, Satan shut up and fell into silence. Countless demon warriors were surrounding the earth core furnace with machines. Among the many demon lords, Ian and Ophelia stood on a hideous chariot and looked at Satan. Is this our enemy? Ian tilted his head in confusion. He thought his enemy would be human, but he didn't expect that the first thing he saw when he arrived here was a monster with horns. By the way, among the races that have joined this war game, are there such monsters? Ian thought about it, but he had no idea. Ophelia knelt on one knee beside Ian. "Your Highness, it's time to give orders. Your reputation will resound throughout the world." Ian hesitated for a moment. He was not very courageous. It was better not to challenge the whole world. But the hideous chariot under his feet gave Ian some confidence and courage. Disaster Chariot. Introduction: a living war weapon after being given life by the demon realm. Toughness, 80. Features: Despair Field, Distorted Cannon, Doomsday Armor. Despair Field: non-demon units entering the vicinity of this vehicle have a chance to fall into a state of fear. Twisted Cannon: this vehicle increases the damage to infantry units by 50%. If no damage is caused to the soldiers during the attack, a demonic terrain is created at the bombardment site. Doomsday Armor: extremely strong armor that can absorb a lot of explosion damage and reflect beam attacks to a small extent. This is the top tank unit in the demon technology tree. In the post-apocalyptic era, it is also the status of the experimental main battle tank in the human technology tree. There are still 10 tank units like this among the demon lords under Ian. As for lower-level vehicle units, there are countless. However, the disaster tank is rarely used on the front battlefield. More often, it is used as beyond visual range artillery. Just like now. After Ian issued the attack order, countless demon lords commanded their soldiers to charge forward. The disaster tanks in the demon line stayed in place and raised the gun holes little by little. It seems that they want to use a round of firepower to directly cover Gao Qiang's base. How could the demons develop to this extent in this timeline? The surveillance screen in the control room played the actions of the demons. Looking at the demon vehicles covered with scales or burning with demonic flames, Gao Qiang could hardly imagine what kind of mistakes he had made to let the demons go to such a situation. Previously, the demons asked all lords to surrender and claimed that they had already established victory. They were many times weaker than now. In my database, the demons did not show any aggressiveness before attacking us. 401 quickly sorted out the reasons why the demons have been able to develop to this day. They learned to hide. They were either invading or on the way to invade all day long, but they actually learned to hide. The demons restrained all their edges. It was not until the moment of the surprise attack on the Earth core furnace base that the demons showed all their edges. It was precisely because there was no threat and oppression from external forces. In this timeline, the fallen empire had never awakened at all, and was directly forced to the front by the demons. Gao Qiang frowned. The demons knew him too well, as if someone had been reborn. No, even more detailed than those who had been reborn. They seemed to fully understand the weaknesses of the fallen empire and the countermeasures. Temporary invincibility does not mean eternal invincibility, and winning at the starting line does not mean winning at the finish line. As long as they are not crushed to death halfway, their chances of winning will never fall to zero, and time just takes advantage of this. Perhaps the demons have lost tens of thousands of times, but the only victory was captured by time. "I'll find a way to hold them back," Hexio suddenly said. Now that the base's defense towers have been destroyed, only the mechas and tanks in stock can be used. But even if the demons have war weapons at the top of the technology tree, the wolf spider mechas that have experienced dozens of cycles cannot be weaker than the opponent. Sitting on the sofa, Hexio picked up the handle beside him, but his eyes fell into an extremely calm state. "It's time to play with your brain. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire?" Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 358. Following Hexio's actions, the leaders led by Lian Qian also quickly entered the state. "Our vehicles are leaving the warehouse." At the moment when the fire from the disaster chariot fell, circular electromagnetic shields opened suddenly, blocking all attacks. Then a muscular mechanical figure emerged from the shield. The wolf spider mecha jumped several times and broke into the demonic line at an incredible speed. The demons have no concept of not accidentally injuring friendly forces. Seeing the arrival of the wolf spider mecha, various attack lights flashed in the demonic front. Not many of them were able to attack the wolf spider mecha in the end. On the contrary, many of the friendly troops who had gathered together were accidentally killed in the chaos. In the control room, Bihexio's expression did not change at all. He looked at the screen in front of him attentively, and even though he was surrounded by explosions behind him, he never thought of looking back. He wants to be faster. As long as he is fast enough, all attacks will be thrown behind him. Suddenly, Bihexio's eyes lit up. A disaster tank appeared in front of the wolf spider mecha. Without any hesitation, Bihexio directly controlled the wolf spider mecha and jumped towards the disaster chariot. In the distance, Ophelia was still kneeling on one knee. After seeing this, he smiled coldly. What a lunatic! The armor of the disaster chariot is difficult to penetrate even with the artillery of human main battle tanks. The opponent still takes it for granted. But the next moment, the mechanical legs of the wolf spider mecha plunged hard into the thickest front armor of the disaster chariot. Then two cannons aimed at the weakest point of the disaster chariot. Boom boom boom. Fire shot into the sky, and in the raging smoke, the wolf spider mecha jumped out and continued to wander around the battlefield, looking for the next target to hunt. Ophelia stood up from Ian. She had never expected this. She also had no idea that this human lord, who had never developed, actually had such a powerful weapon. But after realizing this, Ophelia looked at the Demon King's incarnation strangely. The Demon King's wisdom is indeed correct. If they faced off against human lords with these equipment at the beginning, they would gain absolutely nothing. But why does the Demon King know so much about a human lord he has never met before? Under Ophelia's gaze, the incarnation of the Demon King is still fighting with Satan. Although Satan's aura was slowly weakening due to being burned by the demonic flames, due to Satan's ability to fly, the Demon King's incarnation could not eliminate him in a short time. There's not enough time. The Demon King's incarnation murmured, but outsiders could not understand what he wanted to express. But the next moment, the Demon King incarnates to continue attacking Satan. But at the moment when he was about to touch Satan, he suddenly changed the direction of attack. The spear formed by the magic flame thrust straight towards the control room. Everything happened so fast, no one expected that he who had been attacking Satan would suddenly change the target of his attack. The spear penetrated several layers of electromagnetic shields in succession, and every 10 of them were reduced in size. But the little remaining part still stabbed towards Gaoqiang. Lord! Shasha suddenly stretched out her hand, intercepted the spear from the side, and held it in her hand. At this moment, because it had penetrated too many barriers, the length of the spear was only less than 3 meters. But even so, the Demon King's incarnation still looked at the scene in astonishment. Only he himself could understand the intensity of that blow just now. If it were a human strategic weapon, it would at least be the upward attack power of an intercontinental missile. This level of attack power is enough to be called a city-level title. Even if it penetrated several layers of shields, this attack should not be stopped by a human girl. Even in the eyes of the Demon King's incarnation, the life-devouring demon flame seemed to have no effect on Shasha. Her damage resistance is higher than Satan's. No, that shouldn't be right. If the damage resistance is really that high, why bother avoiding the lava rising from the ground? The clock kept swinging back and forth in the eyes of the Demon King's incarnation, and he seemed unable to understand why Shasha was not harmed by the demon flames. But the blow he just struck out wasn't just the magic flames. As the spear was caught in Shasha's hand, strange creatures the size of steamed buns gradually emerged from the spear. The slime shed by these creatures can even corrode the ground. When they appeared, the spear moved involuntarily, trying to get out of Shasha's palm and continue to stab Gaoqiang. Seeing more and more strange creatures the size of steamed buns, the spear in his hand was about to escape. Sasha suddenly opened her mouth in a hurry. Whoa! As the creatures drilled out of the spears were swallowed by Sasha into her stomach, the place fell into a subtle silence. That woman ate the embodied product of the demon realm. What kind of freak is she? The incarnation of the demon emperor opened his eyes wide. The demon realm is a death place in the eyes of foreigners, a terrain that is usually avoided. As a result, he was actually eaten by a human? As those creatures were eaten one by one, the size of the spear in Sasha's hand continued to shrink. Until finally, it completely disappeared. But Gao Qiang saw that something was wrong with Sasha's expression. Sasha, are you really okay? Under Gao Qiang's gaze, Sasha covered her stomach for the first time and half knelt on the ground in great discomfort. Facing Gao Qiang's question, she wanted to say that she was fine, but she could only show a pale smile. Finally, this smile turned into a bitter smile. Sasha seems to have a stomachache this time. A trace of blood emerged from the place where Sasha was covering her stomach. After seeing this scene, the Demon King incarnation was relieved. If there really is a human who can swallow the demon realm intact, that's too scary. In this short period of time, Sasha's face became even paler. Sasha's stomach hurt so much, will Sasha not be able to eat the food made by the chef's sister in the future? Gao Qiang quickly came to Sasha and wanted to help Sasha up, but Juluo stretched out his hand to stop him. It's too late. As he spoke, Sasha's body turned into a group of floating particles and dispersed. Sasha. Seeing Sasha disappear with his own eyes, Gao Qiang's voice was a little choked. Could he only watch as the Time Lord took away the people he knew one by one from his side in countless cut timelines? You still have a chance to see Sasha again, Juluo suddenly reminded. Seeing Gao Qiang looking up blankly, Juluo added, as long as you are still alive, the day you meet Sasha again will not be far away. But, speaking of this, Juluo couldn't stop shaking all over. Now I am so angry. The news of Sasha's death was quickly spread to every citizen by 401. Your territory type has been changed to Awakening Empire. This awakening, you can only use the construction sequence, destruction. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Me Shida Di. Chapter 359. Lord, give the order. Juluo suppressed his anger and pointed at the Demon King incarnation outside the base. Seeing that the first attack failed to kill Gao Qiang, the Demon King incarnation had gathered a second attack again. For some reason, Satan's hostile characteristics lost their effect on the Demon King incarnation. Now, killing Gao Qiang has become the opponent's first goal again. So although he has re-entered the awakening state, Gao Qiang has no time to look at the recruitment interface carefully. Any hesitation may put himself in a dangerous situation. Suddenly, Gao Qiang had an idea. 401, take over all war permissions. This is a high-risk behavior, are you sure? 401 did not take over the permissions directly, but sent a second authentication to Gao Qiang. In this short period of time, the magic flame in the hands of the Demon King incarnation has become higher and higher, and the second spear is about to be condensed. The last time it was Sasha who died to protect himself, who will it be next time? I don't want to see people I know continue to die. Gao Qiang turned his head to look at the expression projected by 401, and said with an unusually firm face. Ignore the risk, confirm the execution. Authorization has been obtained, all agreements are being retrieved, and redundant agreements are being processed. Agreement is being deleted. At this moment, the Demon King's incarnation also launched a second attack on the control room. The spear formed by the magic flame in his hand flickered, but the unstable destructive aura in it could not be ignored. He would not make the mistake intercepted by Sasha again. As long as this attack successfully enters the control room, it will cause a violent explosion, turning the entire control room into a demonic domain and destroying all life in it. Feeling the killing intention of the Demon King's incarnation, Satan's pupils shrank sharply. There was no other reason. Yana was still in the control room. Once Yana died, he would be like water without a source and would soon disappear from this world. I'm afraid this guy was my enemy in his previous life. Satan cursed inwardly, but the wings behind him trembled once, and he quickly stepped forward to block the spear still burning with magic flames. Puff! The spear pierced into Satan's chest, and this scene was also seen by Yana in the control room. Satan. Seeing Satan's body falling like a broken kite, Yana's eyes gradually lost their brilliance. Why did his heart hurt so much? Feeling Yana's sad breath, Satan's unpleasant voice came from the opening of the base ceiling. I'm not dead yet. Staggering in mid-air, Satan looked at the spear. His atheistic nature allowed him to dissolve most of the damage of the spear, but the remaining damage went straight through his body. The incarnation of the Demon King didn't want to get entangled with him at all. This attack was intended to kill all the lives in the control room. And Satan wanted to intercept it, but it was too late. All redundant protocols have been deleted. Just when the spear was about to penetrate the electromagnetic shield, 401's voice sounded again, but this time his tone was no longer emotional. We start the machine, Doomsday Mech. As soon as the words fell, a new shield as red as blood suddenly opened from the center of the base. Boom! After a violent sound, the spear condensed by the Demon King's incarnation exploded outside the base. This time, the attack of the Demon King's incarnation did not successfully penetrate the shield. With the arrival of the shield, Gao Qiang felt a shake under his body, and the entire base opened to both sides. Countless magmas boiled upwards, and accompanied by jumping lava, a giant machine hundreds of meters tall was sent up by the elevator. Doomsday Mech. Introduction: the ultimate weapon that combines all killing weapons. The only meaning of its existence is to follow the will of God and bring the end of the world as promised. Toughness, 100 add 150, Cycle Technology, add 500, Aegis. Features: all-round combat, fusion reactor, God's Eye, Zeus Shield. All-round combat: this unit will analyze the enemy's life weaknesses and replace the corresponding weapons that can cause damage. Fusion reactor: when this unit dies, it triggers a concentrated nuclear explosion with a radius of 500 meters. God's Eye: when this unit exists on the battlefield, it will pull all our silos into a precision strike state. Zeus Shield, experimental space shield, reducing the energy damage received by 50%. As soon as the Doomsday Mech appeared, 2 light beam cannons were mounted on its shoulders. The light red light gathered at the muzzle. The next moment, 2 violent beams attacked the Demon King's incarnation. The ground touched by the beams turned into black scorched earth. The Demon King's incarnation tried to dodge, but it was not that fast. In just a moment, the abdomen was pierced by the beam, burning out 2 empty holes. A red light flashed in the eyes of the Doomsday Mech. Protocol, advance. Boom. As the Doomsday Mech walked forward, each step would leave a deep footprint on the ground. Whether it was wreckage or rubble, it would be flattened the first time it touched the Doomsday Mech. There was almost no obstacle that could stop the Doomsday Mech from advancing. Then, the red light in the eyes of the Doomsday Mech swept across the demon army. Protocol, cleanup. The missile bays on both shoulders of the Doomsday Mech opened, and countless tiny flares flew out and shot into the demon line, turning into red beams of light rising into the sky. At this time, on the satellite map in the control room, countless red light spots appeared in every corner of the planet. Our A-001 missile silo has been deployed in place. Our A-002 missile silo. Our cruise missiles are intervening in the battlefield. Received the traction signal, our cruise missiles are about to carry out the strike, please evacuate all combatants on the scene immediately. Strike countdown, 3, 2, 1. Just when the countdown of 401 ended, countless giant missiles flew towards the flare mark with tail smoke. Huge mushroom clouds rose from the ground again and again, as if the end of the world was coming. This is not God's punishment, but the power of civilization. In the dissipating mushroom cloud, the figure of the doomsday mech gradually emerged. It and the demon army took all the cruise missile explosions, but the bright red shield around it did not dim at all. Those missiles could not threaten it. In the distance, Ophelia watched the scene in horror. As early as the color in the sky became wrong, she had already picked up Ian and evacuated the location of the demon army. If not, I am afraid that she and Ian would also be buried in the previous round of attacks. But even the evil of civilization, which is a natural disaster, has never erupted with such a powerful attack power. In this war game, who is the natural disaster? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 360. Of course, what is most unimaginable to Ophelia is the hardness of the doomsday mech's shield. The terrifying round of missiles just now couldn't break the shield of the doomsday mech. With the demon's existing technology tree, how should we deal with it? Thinking of this, Ophelia couldn't help but cursed. The disaster chariot's toughness of 80 points is already quite strong. Even vehicles with this level of defense were turned into ashes under the attack just now. So wouldn't the toughness of a shield that was undamaged by that kind of attack be frighteningly high? How did the opponent support this level of shield? However, Ophelia and Ian escaped, but the demon army was not feeling well at the moment. Just now, cruise missiles almost accurately hit all the high-level vehicles of the demon clan, so that the demon clan's firepower is now much weaker. The doomsday mechas stretched out a series of weapons such as flamethrowers and wreaked havoc on the front line, constantly massacring the remaining demon troops. If the threat of the doomsday mecha cannot be resolved, the defeat of the demon clan will become a foregone conclusion. At this moment when all the demon lords are having a huge headache. At the furnace in the center of the earth, the electronic sound of 401 sounded again. Deployed combat unit, Doomsday Mecha. Hearing the sound of the elevator sliding again, the demon lords looked towards the earth core furnace in astonishment. I saw the second Doomsday Mecha being lifted up from where it was just now. This is not the only mecha that can rival the final strategy of the demons. How many more of these things do humans have? Just when the demon lord thought of this. Deployed combat unit, Doomsday Mecha. The electronic sound of 401 continued to be heard, and the third Doomsday Mecha was lifted to the ground and advanced towards the demon clan's front. Soon, the fourth and fifth ones, more and more Doomsday Mechas appeared on the battlefield. If this continues, it will not be the demons that surround humans, but the Doomsday Mechas that will surround the demons. Ophelia frowned. In her friend interface, more and more lords requested to retreat. This time, the war fatigue of the demon soldiers had not reached its peak, but the morale of the lords collapsed first. If Ophelia hadn't tamed many demon lords before, I'm afraid those lords would have dispersed by now. What they like is the joy of torturing foreigners, rather than the feeling of being abused by foreigners. The demon lords are not that despicable. What's more, in the current situation, the demon clan's current fighting power makes it impossible for them to win even if they think about it. In this case, just when Ophelia was about to give the order to retreat, a huge figure suddenly stood up. Lord Demon Emperor. Ophelia looked at the Demon Emperor's incarnation in disbelief. At the moment when the previous Demon Emperor's incarnation fell, everyone thought he was dead. But now, that doesn't seem to be the case. The Demon King's incarnation looked at the battlefield with an annoyed expression. Originally, he thought that after escaping by feigning death, he would be able to use the demon army to divert the Doomsday Mech away, and he would be able to take the opportunity to continue attacking the Earth core furnace. But now it seems that if he continues to pretend to be dead, the number of Doomsday Mechs will probably double again. Damn it! The Demon King transformed into a claw and held it empty, as if he was dissatisfied that he was so weak now. Yes, he is so weak now. The Demon King's incarnation suddenly paused, and then turned his head sharply to look at Ophelia and Ian's hiding place. He seems to have a solution. Since it was Ian who summoned the weakened him, then Ian must also have a way to summon a stronger him. Looking at the incarnation of the Demon King from a long distance, Ian said timidly, "Father." He was a little scared. Although Clifford liked to slap him in the past, he didn't feel much malice. But for some reason today, Clifford felt alienated and scary to him. When Ian thought of this, he found Ophelia looking at him in shock. "Your Highness." Ian lowered his head strangely, and a formation rose under his feet. "Isn't this the heavenly demon array used to summon the demons?" However, he did not release this formation. To use the demonic formation, you need to sacrifice enough sacrifices, such as the remains of the enemy, the flesh and blood of friendly forces, or noble lives. There are no conditions for using the demon array now. Even if it is used, it will probably only be able to summon some low-level demon projections, which will not have any effect on the battle situation. If you want to summon a demon of Demon King Clifford's level, you need to sacrifice a lot of things. Originally, the demons had been fighting against the evils of civilization for a year, and finally summoned the incarnation of the Demon King through the flesh, blood, and debris of friendly and enemy troops. For it. Suddenly, Ian screamed in pain, and a large mouthful of light blue blood spurted out, splashing on the demon formation. "Your Highness!" Ophelia exclaimed and wanted to step forward, but was blocked by the demon formation. Seeing this scene, she understood who the sacrifice offered by the demon array was. Noble life. By sacrificing the life of Ian, a direct relative of the Demon Emperor, a more powerful incarnation of the Demon Emperor can be summoned. But how could the timid Ian in the past make such a decision? Ophelia is so smart that she immediately understood that this was not Ian's intention. Then the only one who can do this is the Demon King incarnation summoned by the heavenly demon formation. Ophelia glanced into the distance. But suddenly she took out a huge sword from her hand and slashed at the heavenly demon formation. "What are you doing?" The roar of the Demon King incarnation could be heard clearly across most of the battlefield. He didn't understand why an ant who shouldn't be cared about by him and was just a supporting role had the courage to destroy his plan. "You are not Lord Clifford at all." Ophelia's voice was cold. Seeing the Doomsday Mechas surrounded the Demon King incarnation, Ophelia's hands moved faster. She must rescue Ian from the heavenly demon formation before the successful sacrifice. Otherwise, if the Doomsday Mecha was forced into a corner, God knows what that guy would do to Ian. But all this was in vain. Ian's Lord Path Array Master greatly enhanced the stability of the heavenly demon formation. If the Chariot of Disaster still exists, there is still a chance to break the demon formation that has already begun to sacrifice. But with the power of Lord Ophelia alone, there is no possibility of breaking it. In the demon formation, Ian's expression has become more and more painful. The space above the formation also gradually began to distort, causing ripples. Until a hideous arm emerged from the air, Ophelia's giant sword fell and she collapsed on the ground. She had no chance. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 361. The sacrifice of the demonic formation was successful. The moment when the new incarnation of the Demon King arrives is when Ian dies. Nothing can be changed. But at this moment, the arm slowly stretched out in mid-air suddenly stopped. At the same time that he stopped stretching out, Ian's complexion in the demon formation instantly improved a lot, and he took a few deep breaths. He could feel that the heavenly demon formation no longer absorbed his life force. The summoned monster refused to respond to his summons. Before dissipating, the outstretched arm suddenly condensed into a ball, which flew over the Doomsday Mech and hit the Demon Emperor's incarnation. Boom! Huge demonic flames soared into the sky, and the Demon Emperor's incarnation was instantly ignited, and his body was constantly being eroded and shrunk. It seems that this is not enjoyable enough. Furious roars continued to come from the ripples in the air. How dare you hurt my child like this? Damn, bastard, bastard. No matter who you are, from now on, I, the Demon King Clifford, will fight you until death. The rest of the words were not passed on. Because at this time, the demon formation had completely dissipated, and this was the first time Ophelia saw Ian's failed summons since she had been following Ian for so long. Sure enough, what he just summoned was the real Demon Emperor. In the 9th level battlefield, Clifford fell into a rage and smashed almost everything in sight. It wasn't until there was nothing left to hit and he stood in front of the bridge and looked at the starry sky through the dark glass that Clifford finally calmed down a little. Why would his dead incarnation contact him again? Clifford didn't want to guess, and there was no need to guess. After all, it was not impossible for some rare or miraculous items to have such effects. Only. Clifford looked gloomy. He could feel that the incarnation he had reconnected with was him, but not like him. After being reborn, that incarnation has completely changed. With his memory and thinking, he will actually make completely different choices from his own. Sacrifice Ian's life to kill his enemies. As a great demon king, he never bothered to do this. Is that guy really himself? Just when Clifford was lost in thought, the scene in front of Gao Qiang changed again in the control room of the Earth core furnace. The damaged ceiling was restored to its original state. Traces of the light prism tower reappeared in the outside world. At the same time, the Doomsday Mecha and the Demon Army have all disappeared, as if they had never appeared. Only the ever-increasing surveillance footage faithfully recorded everything. It seems that timeline was completely abandoned after being hostile to Demon King Clifford. That's right. Gao Qiang woke up with a start. Sasha. He turned around and searched in the control room. Like Ixier, Sasha also disappeared into the control room after her death. You will see Sasha again, but not now, Jologo comforted her. What can be seen with the naked eye is that after experiencing 2 turmoils, the number of people in the control room has decreased a lot. Immediately, Jologo continued to add, if the current number of people continues to decrease, what you should be more worried about is that Sasha will never see you again. Gao Qiang fell into silence. On the big screen nearby, the surveillance images continued to increase. Over 100, over 1,000, over 10,000. The number of surveillance images is increasing faster and faster, with a large number of new images flashing through almost every second. I don't know how many if timelines are running in sync with Gao Qiang now. It seems that after the defeat of the demons, it will not be easy for the secret Time Lord to find another useful timeline. If even the demons can't defeat Gao Qiang, then who else can be used next? After all, after forcing Gao Qiang into a panic, the person who had the most trouble was definitely not Gao Qiang himself. Boom. At this moment, a sound of hitting the wall made Gao Qiang quickly raise his head. I saw that Satan had flown out, and his blood and flesh were scattered on the wall beside him. Wait, what just happened? Not only Gao Qiang, but also Yana didn't react. Why did Satan suddenly fly out when he was fine just now? And, the death was so sudden? You're kidding me, right? Yana was still a little careless at the moment. Again and 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 again. He mistakenly thought Satan was dead again and again, and worried about Satan in vain. But every time in the end, it was successfully proven that Satan would definitely live longer than him. Thinking of this, Yana couldn't help but feel a little funny. Stop scaring me. As he spoke, he walked forward and stretched out his hand to touch Satan's exploded flesh and blood. Slimy. Yana was suddenly stunned. He couldn't believe the scene until the foul smell of blood entered his nostrils and hit his taste buds. Satan, how could he die? Is there something wrong somewhere? Where are the enemies? So far, 401 has not given any alert. But Byhexio had already stood up, pulled out a firearm from under the sofa, and walked quickly to Gao Qiang. Zilla. The control room door opens. A familiar figure walked in. Everyone was stunned when they saw that face. Yexian. Yexian, who had long been dead, appeared here again and walked in from the control room in a swagger. What a coincidence. Yexian looked at his smooth jade-like hands and sighed. I didn't want to kill him originally, but the disgust he brought to me was too strong. While speaking, Yexian looked at Yana. You should know this better than me, right? My kind. At this time, more elf lords came in and surrounded the control room with a group of fully armed elf soldiers. Gao Qiang and all the people in the control room were gradually compressed in the standing space. But Gao Qiang couldn't figure out what the Time Lord had done. With the fighting power of the elves, how could they enter the base? Seeing Gao Qiang's expression, Yexian seemed to have misunderstood something. After sneering, Yexian asked, Are you still waiting for someone to save you? Then why don't you feel who I am? He is the Time Lord Eternity. After hearing Yexian's words, Gao Qiang's first reaction was like this. But he soon realized that it was wrong. Yexian's words should not be this meaning. After using the source essence to carefully feel each other, Gao Qiang and Yana both changed their faces at the same time. Because it was only Yexian standing in front of them. But Gao Qiang and Yana could feel that 5 source essences appeared here at the same time. In addition to Gao Qiang's source essence V severe and Yexian's source essence I atheism. The remaining 3 source essences are source essence 3 rejection, source essence 4 no mercy and source essence X kingdom.